Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. I have to read this again because I forgot to put my Do Not Disturb on. RNZ menu. Escaping Cult Life, That's an Invincible Scar That Never Goes Away, dated 9 July 2019, by Anke Richter, guest writer. Journalist Anke Richter had an unexpected brush with Hollywood at a cult conference in the UK, and also found that learning early on about manipulation and coercion should be as important as sex education. Facts. Hoyt Richards at the annual conference of International Cultic Studies Association. Before the doors opened to the conference room at the Holiday Inn Hotel in Manchester, I bump into a well-dressed middle-aged man with dazzling white teeth who brings up images of high-end fashion and yachting around Scandinavia, but not that of a suffering cult survivor. He's Hoyt Richards, the world's first male supermodel. Like other victims of cultic abuse and their support, people and families, the charming blonde with the confident smile is attending the annual conference of International Cultic Studies Association, this year held in England. The still handsome Hoyt is on a different mission than back in the 80s, when he posed with Cindy and Naomi for celebrity photographers like Bruce Weber. Hold on. In those years, he was also under the total control of a UFA doomsday cult called Eternal Values. By the way, you guys, if you think it's a coincidence that all these cults have the same kind of narratives, it's not. Called Eternal Values, Richards gave them all his earnings, about $45 million, and that was the plan. They send a lot of handlers for the celebrities, the models, the actors, actresses, but sued them to the ground after he finally managed to extract himself. Good for him. Today, the 57-year-old warns about brainwashing from esoteric teachings, to ISIS. He's often paired with a celebrity in his own right when it comes to understanding extremism. Steven Hassan, whose books on mind control and deprogramming have apparently saved some of the lives of the people entering the room with me. I'm the only New Zealander among more than 200 attendees, many of them Americans. Personally, at this point, I still have great respect for Steven Hassan. I do. I haven't seen any weird stuff, or he worked his butt off and he's helped a lot of people. Hassan is also here a bespectacled mental health counselor, and so far the only one wearing a tie. He's been helping people to leave destructive cults since the 70s. We're at a historical tipping point, he tells me, when institutions are breaking down and there is instability and fear. That's what they use. Then more people are vulnerable and accept those who say they have a solution. Solution. Does that sound familiar? The other person I would not have expected at an anti-cult event is a guy in a long linen robe and a lonely tuft of hair at the back of his shaved head. Anuttama Dasa. I would tell him to leave. Minister of International Communication for Hare Krishna. I would tell that guy to leave. He says he's been coming to the conference for 20 years to understand the nature of group dynamics. Or is he there to handle the other Hare Krishna people that left? Wakey. Sometimes people can abuse their power. In 2000, the religious group faced a listen to this, you guys, $400 million lawsuit in the U.S. for sexual, emotional, and physical abuse. Guess where, you guys? at their boarding schools. They love their access to children, don't they? Even though Hare Krishna is now a reformed sect. I don't buy that for 1 second. Doesn't that sound just like the whole Boy Scout scandal? Not everyone at ICSA is happy to see them. I'll bet not. But it's an open conference. Anyone can register. That sounds like you're allowing handlers to come in. But what do I know? And it's better to come good-willed and be transparent than say Scientology, mind-controlled, who have their spies here in the past. Says Steve Eichel, a sex therapist. That gives me weird vibes right there, you guys. A sex therapist? Gives me weird vibes. From Delaware and president of the ICSA. He knows how vulnerable and justifiably paranoid some of the traumatized visitors are. That's why he lets the Hare Krishna guy in, right? Some don't even wear their name tag. Rule by fear, right? Rule number 1, look after yourselves, he tells everyone at the start. And this is Hoyt Richards talking to Nital Joseph, formerly of Hare Krishna, at International Cultic Studies Association. ICSA has been around for 40 years and was then called the American Family Foundation with a Christian base. Well, that sounds trustworthy. You guys know I'm like the most paranoid person on earth. Like in a healthy, paranoid way. Today, you'll mainly find non-believers among the wide bunch of therapists. That's good. Academics and experts, many of them with their own cult history, who offer help, information, and workshops for leavers. You don't see Rinder over there, do you? From various international groups and connect them with a support network. This year, their conference is hosted by the University of Salford, which offers a postgraduate course in the psychology of coercive control. A few of the master students are here, overcoming their own cult trauma with academic research. The upcoming speakers are lecturers, some are activists or survivors. In all of the above, speaking of Scientology, mind-controlled, someone points out a lanky guy carrying manila folders, to me who is a legend among the cult busters, author John Atack. I want to say, initially I trusted John Atack, and I liked all the things he had to say. My very, 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 very first viewing of him, I had a really bad vibe, and I can't go into it right here. But since he jumped on the bandwagon with Mike Rinder, I think maybe my initial feelings were right. Has been consulted in 150 lawsuits against Scientology and was sued by them 8 times. Now he's at the helm of the Open Minds. It's a weird thing to say. Of the Open Minds Foundation, an international think tank that wants to proof society against undue influence. Some of the proofing and healing was done before we started, a day-long workshop offered only to former members of high-control groups. A description that is more fitting these days than the controversial word, cult. Why is it so controversial? Who said it's controversial? Just like you can't say anti, and you can't say HIPAA, and you can't say, what's the other word? What's it called? Constitutional rights, right to privacy. Which is often just associated with Charles Manson or the Jonestown Massacre. Eichel is even thinking of replacing the C word in the organization's name with coercion. You guys do know at the very, very, very tippy top of the pyramid, they believe in blood sacrifice. They believe in, what else can I say on here? All kinds of versions of sacrifice. Many problematic groups look harmless, are active in your neighborhood or even your workplace, says Ulrich Schieser, who has flown in from Austria where that's a woman. She is a state-funded, specialized anti-cult counselor, something that's desperately needed in New Zealand. They can form around a healer, a gym, a financial coach, and they might be just emerging, especially the rapidly growing conscious field. Oh, there's a lot going on in there, let me tell you, which of course is infiltrated. With its many new bliss-inducing ceremonies, body therapies, and self-help courses, is a huge unregulated market in her eyes. I don't believe in a lot of regulation, me personally. The evil ones don't want people knowing about it. But of course it's loaded with narcissists and that. The 91 sessions, interesting number, over the next 3 days offer a variety from gangs and human trafficking to magical thinking. Would that be law of attraction? Are they trying to debunk law of attraction? They don't want anyone else knowing about magic except them, but they do it in a diabolical way. And narcissism. The groups under discussion range from Transcendental Meditation to Aum Shinrikyo, who are behind the Tokyo subway sarin attack. That's what they tell us. It's not so much about discrediting specific new religious movements, as sects and cults are more neutrally addressed nowadays. Are they, though? ICSA doesn't offer a definite list of bad groups, but just an archive of information. What about the child abusers? It's more about understanding the dynamic of manipulation, power, spiritual bypassing, victim blaming. Oh, who does that sound like? Victim blaming. Render. And exploitation, even if it doesn't lead to something as extreme as a mass bluicide or the grand-scale sexual abuse of minors at Centerpoint. Oh, that's all over the place. They be liking those little kids. Cultic dynamics are present in multi-level marketing schemes for essential oils or in some Tantra schools, among Buddhists as well as in political splinter groups. The so-called jihad brides and neo-Nazis have more in common than they think. The passengers of subway lie down on a street at Hakobori Station in Tokyo on 20 March 1995 after a sarin attack. I wonder what sarin is in the gematria calculator. I'm going to go look it up. If it's a 44, you guys can look it up. Go tell me if it's a 44, because 44 is one of the death numbers. It's afternoon and Hollywood enters Manchester. Cecilia Peck, daughter of film star Gregory Peck, is shooting a documentary about women under coercion. Peck arrived with Los Angeles actress Naomi Gibson, who is talking publicly for the first time about her involvement with NXIVM, pronounced NXIVM, the pyramid scheme turned sex cult, which also attracted Smallville star Allison Mack and the daughter of Dynasty star Catherine Oxenberg. NXIVM founder Keith Raniere, yeah, that's what they tell us, that Keith was the founder. A narcissistic psychopath was sentenced in the U.S. in June, a spectacular case that might set the precedent for more claims against abusive cult leaders. He kept some women like slaves in his inner circle, and minors as well, you guys. There was a little Mexican girl, a minor, yeah, who were branded with his initials. That's also a secret society ritual right there. Our brains are branded with Keith Raniere's philosophy, says Gibson, her face tense, her voice trembling. That's an invincible scar that never goes away. Hold on, I get some water. Gotta get some water. Gibson's slim, dark, long hair, fitted black jacket, is wiping away tears when she reveals her traumatic childhood. She grew up on the Manila compound of the Children of God. That one is one of the most diabolical cults ever. They call themselves a family. I mean, how sick is that? Doesn't that remind you of the Jesters, talking about family and all that crap? There she was Ard as a 5-year-old. Isn't that great, you guys? Ard as a 5-year-old by a caregiver. Consternation is tangible in the packed room. Everyone stands up at the end of her account, applauding her. Go look to see how many of the children from Children of God have committed bluicide. Nobody gave a fuck about them. Ex-model Richards, who is planning his own documentary series, compliments her for being so brave. Keep doing the work, he says, you'll be fine. Cult hopping is a thing. I keep hearing I'm session hopping. There's too much on offer. I learned from Yuval Laor, an Israeli researcher from Colorado and an emerging evolutionary thinker, that a personal cult situation, which can even just happen one-on-one. I've met people like that had one-on-one cults. Without a group resembles infatuation in its initial stage, which that's the love bombing. Being in a state of awe-induced limerence, as he calls it, means you are not open to any factual evaluation of your desired ideology, group, or teacher, just like parents will shut you out if you criticize their child. Further down the track, this relationship often turns into what resembles the wheel of domestic violence. Now that's another Ixus talk. Members of the prosecution in the NXIVM case arrive with documents. Wonder why they can't do the same thing for Scientology. Inquiring minds want to know. At Brooklyn Federal Court on May 7th, 2019. Trauma, fervor, control, seduction, dependence, rescue, cognitive dissonance. Many psychological and also legal aspects are dissected here to understand. Always compassionately, as a Swiss psychotherapist points out over lunch, Adrienne Ortley is attending ICSA for the third time. It's really touching to meet people who are willing to risk losing everything, their whole peer group, to be true to themselves. Ortley, soft-spoken and ponytailed, was part of a left-wing radical group, similar to the German RAF or Baader-Meinhof gang. Now he's into nonviolent communication. He is affected himself, but helping others is part of the Open Mind Foundation, and says he's never felt more secure than here. Do you guys think that it's a coincidence that I'm going to say it like, okay, the K blank K blank K wear white, what are those called? White ritualistic gowns with the hoods? Do you think it's a coincidence? I'm touched as well when I listen to a panel of 5 young adults who all grew up in a fundamentalist Christian cult. One speaks about becoming a mother only 2 years after leaving. I want to know how old they are, or she is, and not knowing how to discipline her toddler other than hitting him. I had no other reference points. Her friend recounts how she enrolled at a public school. So she was young enough to go to public school. Isn't that fantastic? How she enrolled at a public school sitting next to boys for the first time, not knowing who Beyonce was and clutching her Bible in the breaks, feeling like an alien from another planet, deeply lonely, utterly confused. Their reports are similar to the heartbreaking ones I heard from the young people who left Gloria Vale and struggled to find their place in the outside world. I wish they could be here, or some of these experts in the field could help them out in New Zealand. By the way, I would like to include, I think that all these places where they're so-called helping these juveniles, they call them all different kind of names. That's another place that they're traumatizing these children legally and making money doing it. On another panel in another room, young activists speak about their legal battles against the abusive churches. One Jehovah's Witness, the other Exclusive Brethren. I would gather to say they're former. Those are tough stories about survival of the human spirit against all odds. They make you angry, but they also give hope. pretty much every IXCA session, whether it's about female genital mutilation or the questionable legacy of the Beatles guru. Oh, he did a lot of atrocities too, I have heard. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi encourages you to question everything. Why? Is the best prevention against political and religious extremism. Someone has written it on a whiteboard. Everything's hidden in plain sight. I've heard, I don't know that much about Maharishi Mahesh, but I heard there were some bad things that went on there. Critical thinking and awareness about manipulation should be taught in schools as much as sex education. Facts. Is the conclusion of most of the experts at ICSA. Psychology professor Jeremy Sherman, a Berkeley veteran of 60 and once an elder at 24, wait a minute here, in a hippie commune, with the hair still the same, takes us down the path of psychoproctology. What are buttheads and how do we stop them? Pictures of Hitler and Donald Trump. That's a psyop too, you guys, just to let you know. A lot of people don't know, I do. Pop up in his PowerPoint presentation, as well as terms like woke and counter woke. That's also a psyop. Like when everybody was waking up to what was really going on in the world, they would say, I'm awake or I'm woke. So they took it over and made all these little bullshit claims about it to confuse people. I'm intrigued by the I was once lost but now I'm blind syndrome. Sherman sends us off with a bang. Research into cult behavior and the appetite for it may well be the most important work in the universe. Boom. At the end of the 3 days, I met Hoyt Richards again outside on the hotel deck. I love the supportive environment here, he says. No one looks down on him or questioned his sanity because the Princeton graduate once believed that an extraterrestrial would save his life. Huh, doesn't that sound like Xenu? What do I know? Or what was the other one? There was the one where there was like mass bluicide and they were all waiting for the spaceships to come. I personally think aliens exist, but I'm just saying, there's so many similar stories here. Richards, now an actor and filmmaker himself, is becoming a public speaker and wants to erase the myth of why people end up in cults, that it happens only to others who are weaker and susceptible. Because I had the stereotype about typical cult followers in my mind. Oh, that can't be me. I actually became one. Even when I was in it, I could not see it. I was that person, and everyone can be it. There's no profile. So that's it, you guys. Good article as far as I'm concerned. And I will leave the link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.